before I begin my presentation, I think I'll fail in my duties if I don't thank Kunwar Vikram Singh Saab, because it is because of him I'm here. He's been kind enough to induct me as a member of a board of advisors of SSDC, as also a member of board of governors of CAPSI as well as APDI. So I suppose he's brought me in, or rather blooded me in the private security force. Ladies and gentlemen, before I begin this little presentation of mine, there's a saying in French by a French author called Boileau, who says, "Ce qui se conçoit bien s'énonce clairement," which means one who understands well enunciates very well, clearly. I suppose with 35 years of background in the Indian Police Service, I suppose I do qualify to be able to put my thoughts across to this august body. My subject is empowering PSI through leadership, integrity and enabling laws. But before I actually come to the subject, I think a little background will be necessary. Kunwar Vikram Singh Saab has already touched on it, but I'm doing so again with certain statistics which makes a point that he was trying to make earlier. Our Honorable Prime Minister has twin vision, of course, amongst many others, and that is of 100 smart cities and also skill development and employment. So I briefly touched on that, and I'll give you certain statistics which are taken from National Crime Record Bureau, which is the keeper of the statistics of the police forces in this country. The police force, Honorable Minister Saab, in India is 1.38 to 1,000 as compared to 2.3 in USA, 3.7 in Europe and 2.6 in Asia Pacific. That means India has one of the lowest ratio to global median of 3:1,000. The sanctioned police force in this country is 21.6 lakhs, while there is only 16.7 lakh policemen who are in place, and a vacancy of 4 lakh police force exists. Now, as you know, all gentlemen, and I will draw the attention of Honorable Minister to this fact, that recruitment, training and deployment of police officers takes minimum 2 to 3 years. And so to make up even this 4 lakh police force, if we were to recruit them at one go, the training institutes of this country, police training institutes, neither do they have capacity nor the infrastructure. The question is therefore that when in this age we are talking about 100 smart cities and inviting people from abroad to make in India, can police bridge this security gap? The answer obviously is no, because as it is 4.7 lakh, 4.9 lakh vacancies are there, and even then, if you recruit them, the average comes to about 1.75. The answer obviously lies with you all, with this private security industry, with CAPSI, with APDI. As already mentioned, 60 to 70 lakhs is the FICCI conservative rate. And if the PSI, I am taking the conservative estimates, 20% over the next few years, there are around 6 gap that can be filled by this security industry, which I would not look upon as a separate entity. I wish to emphasize this point. I would not look upon private security industry as a separate entity, but an extended arm of security and law enforcement agencies in this country. We already have home guards. I mean, they are also virtually doing the same kind of a job. But here I would like to say that this is where we can supplement, but this force would progressively have to be empowered through ethical leadership, training and legal support. And this, then Honorable Minister Saab and the Joint Secretary of MHA who is present here, would then allow police to concentrate on its core functions, which is basically law and order, VIP security, investigations, counter-terrorism, insurgency, and dealing with left-wing extremism. As also already mentioned, private security industry is a partial answer to the skill development and employment. And here are some stunning figures that I picked out from Census 2011. 50% of our population is below the age of 25, and more than 65% below the age of 35. And our Honorable Prime Minister is very proudly proclaimed this all over the world. It is expected that in 2020, the average age of an Indian will be 29 years, compared to 37 for China and 48 for Japan. Nearly 13 million youth enter the labor force every year, the Government of India estimates. And simultaneously, 113 million people reported to the census that they were seeking work. The youth entering the job market lacks skills. Less than 3% of youth in high school receive vocational education, and official estimates show that. So therefore, if we go by the most conservative estimates, 60 lakh PSGs, employment, can play a very important role in skill development. And when I say skill development, I'm talking of the law that has been passed, which authorizes, which makes it mandatory to have 120 hours of training. So therefore, these are not just people picked up and put on the job. Now coming to the subject, well, gentlemen, I picked up Albert Einstein. I did not pick up a management guru or anybody, because I think Einstein remains universally relevant for all times. And he said, try not to become a man of success, but rather to become a man of value. To my mind, as a leader of the police force for 35 years, and I've had the privilege of leading thousands and thousands of men. As ADG training, I had 1 lakh personnel under me for training purposes. To me, ultimately, and this is what Harvard and Stanford and all these well-known management schools are saying, bottom line is people, not profit. In the end, all business operations can be reduced to 3 words: people, product, and profits. People come first. Unless you have got a good team, you can't do much with the other 2. So therefore, gentlemen, as far as this august body is concerned, people here means private security guards, and of course those who are employed in the technological sections. Leadership is changing. And I have seen that, you are in the private security force, so we could consider you as a sister security agency. In fact, that's a good term to use, sister security agency. And even in the police, which is such a disciplined force, which is a uniform force and which is based on paramilitary design, the leadership style is changing. Earlier you could trust yourself, you were analytical, logical. But today, a leader has to be inclusive. He has to be intuitive, and at the same time, most important part, he has to be humane. Here, gentlemen, I am quoting to you 8 rituals of visionary leaders. This is by Robin S. Sharma, the person who wrote the famous book, The Monk Who Sold His Ferrari. I am sure many of you must have read it. But I find these 8 rituals absolutely key to success, and I am talking from my own 35 years of experience. Link profit to purpose. I don't need to explain that. Manage by mind and lead by heart. Surrender to change. Focus on the worthy. It's very important. You can't have everybody who is super competent. You'll have a few. And if you have more, nothing like it. Leader, lead thyself. Who is going to lead you? Nobody is going to lead you. Every individual has to lead himself or herself. The leadership has to come from within. See what all see, but think what none think. You have to be innovative, creative, always changing, reforming, finding new ways, new answers, new solutions. Don't fall into a straight jacket. Then reward routinely and recognize relentlessly. I wonder in private security guard whether these principles are being followed, but in the police, wherever it is followed, I think the concerned superintendent of police or the DIG or the IG or the DGP is a huge success as far as leadership is concerned. And then last but not the least, link leadership to legacy. Leave a legacy behind. If you are the CEO of a certain security industry, people should look up to you. Yeah, here is a person who has created something new and left something behind. So to me, for this august body, inclusive leader would mean, of course, first I would mention the guards, that is the people, the police and government, your clients, and then of course, as Mr. Bhatnagar very rightly pointed out, training. Training is most important, I'll touch on that also, and the community at large. Now this gentleman, I suppose, sums up what I mean by ethics and compliance. Integrity is doing the right thing when no one is watching. Maybe you could make it a mantra of your life. So here I would like to say, we look at law as something that has been thrust upon us by the parliament or by the legislative assemblies. Let me kindly make this point that ethics and morality and mores and customs are the sources of law. Law is defined by the cultural environment in which, or social environment in which you are living. And therefore, to know what is right or wrong, you need not refer to any law book. Your conscience will tell you. The only difference between ethics and, let's say, a crime or violation of ethics and crime would be, while ethics get can come into play if there is only mens rea. But in crime, you need two parts, mens rea and actus reus. That means first a mala fide intention, followed by an action leading to the completion of that action. As I said, integrity is something that when you're doing, not when you're not being watched. So it is at the mens rea stage that the ethics operates. And gentlemen, those who stand for nothing fall for anything. And I'm speaking here from my experience. It is not gathered from any books, from management schools and institutes. It's gathered from the book of life. So what is ethics? Has to be the commitment from the top leadership, from the top management and investors. If that is not, then the rest doesn't matter. I might as well not talk about it. You have to codify anti-ethical and anti-corruption standards within your organizations. Principle of carrot, incentives and sanctions, third-party audits, encouraging self-reporting whistleblowers. Because as the industry grows, as you become the malik of more and more guards, let me assure you all these problems are already coming up, I'm sure, and will come up more and more in a big way. Creating a transparent environment, training and awareness, I consider this very, very important, and keeping communication channels open at all levels. Now what happens if you don't comply with the laws of the land? First of all, non-compliance is antithesis of sustainable growth, period. I don't think one needs to add anything. You could achieve success for 4 years or 5 years or few years, but sooner or later the law will catch up with you. So conflict with laws could be criminal, civil and regulatory actions, credibility and reputation loss, and most importantly, loss of peace of mind, which is what generates the creative juice within you, so to say. And then conflict within the agency could be cheating, embezzlement, misappropriation. There would be fraud and there would be loss of business. So therefore, conflict situations should be avoided for growth of business, organization, and most importantly, self. The other two would follow, as I've always mentioned. Why do I say compliance is the only answer? Section 13 of Pasara, Kumar Sahab, you are well aware, deals with cancellation and suspension of license. As he had pointed out, a drunk guard, and the top man gets punished for that. But I'm talking about several other things. When I read through the act, please see in red what I have written here. It is taken from the section 13 only. Misrepresentation. What are the grounds for cancellation or suspension? Misrepresentation, suppression of material facts, falsification, misuse of information, impersonation, breach of trust, misappropriation, security guards involved in commission of crimes, and of course acts prejudicial to night. All these, what I am mentioning, are actually criminal acts within the Indian Penal Code. So if it happens, kindly do not think that you'll just get away by a suspension or by a cancellation of a license. You might be liable under the law for all these acts in a separate FIR. Besides that, section 13 talks about all these various acts. I'm not going to read all of them. The most important being the Payment of Wages Act and the Labor Act, Contract Labor Act. So these also get attracted and can lead to prosecutions and conflict situations. Now, another thing, background checks. Now, we all know the recent incident here in Delhi about the taxi Uber. And the whole country is debating about background checks. But I, as a policeman, I am honest enough from this podium now that I am not in the government anymore to accept to it there is no centralized database, unfortunately, as yet. We are trying towards moving towards it through CCTNS programs of the NCRB, but there is no central database where you can check. At the most, you can, go make an inquiry from the police station in which he is given his residential address. But he may be operating in various areas, as you see in this case, that crime could be committed in various other states, other police stations, other jurisdictions. So on this issue, let me kindly, from my experience, request you and urge you that kindly satisfy yourself before you recruit. And this, if it is, and this onus has been put on the private security agencies, because he says the eligibility for PSG is that it satisfies the agency about his, her character and antecedents in such manner as may be prescribed. I'm quoting from the law. So I don't think it will be a bad idea if you have a strength of, I'm talking about bigger, larger companies, to create an investigating team of a cell or a cell, investigating cell, who can, on your own, can go to the relevant area, to the where he comes from, and make certain inquiries and ensure yourself that you are recruiting the right guy. Now a little bit about the training part, on which Mr. Bhatnagar has also mentioned, and Kumar Vikram Singh Saab has done a fantastic job by standardization of training. A lot is said, but I have been ADG training for 2 terms in the police, and let me tell you, ADG training police is considered a sidey job. But it is at that point of time I realized my passion. I realized that this is my métier, this is my vocation. And this I used to have when as ADG CID this was on my board. I see no more than you, but I have trained myself to notice what I see. This is what Sherlock Holmes said. And on this issue, the main job of guards, for example, is, according to me, to detect, deter, observe, and report. And observation skills are the most important feature of training, Kumar Sahab. Whatever other training you give, but the observation part is the most important, because here is a guy who's standing in mind into how to observe. And this is again from Sherlock Holmes. You did not know where to look, and so you missed all that was important. Now, methodology of training, again, as I said, I've been ADG training, and I'm glad to report to you that I prepared a proposal of 503 crores Kumar Singh Sahib for the training of the constabulary of Madhya Pradesh Police. And my logic was just about a few lines. My logic was 70% of the police force is constituted by the constables. If the constables are well trained, most of the job of the police will be done, because that is the cutting edge level. And in that, I was also part of the sales, creating the syllabus for the constabulary. And in that, I brought about a lot of these changes, that a lot more has to be done in the practical sessions rather than in classrooms. Today I think it's 120 hours, but again the majority of the time is being given in the classrooms. I think what is more important is case studies and simulation exercises. Put them in a particular situation and see how they react, whether they are reacting properly. Experience sharing, that means those who have been in the guard business for 10 years, 15 years, we can enroll them to come and talk, because they are the best trainers. They have seen what they have seen on the ground as guards. Problem solving exercises, theft, house breaking, etc. and all these is already a part of your drill. Now this is one very important point I want to touch upon. You know, today the size of the cash services I'm reporting from source FICCI. From 2013, 14 to 17 billion. In 2018, it is expected to be 40 to 50 billion, 25% CAGR. How can cash services operate without arms? It's a very fundamental question, and it's an obvious question. Not only the cash vans that I talk about, I'm talking about ATMs. We all know what is happening in the ATMs. I'm talking about the toll booths. I'm also talking about private sector banks. Now there is a Yojana where, you know, we are trying to enroll as many people as possible, and we are opening out our banking system and creating more and more private sector banks. Who is going to guard them? Unfortunately, Arms Act of 1959, only section 3 states, no person shall acquire. No person means an individual. There is no mention of company there. So therefore this, I think, is a very, very important aspect that I draw the attention of the Joint Secretary here in the MHA, that they must take up this issue. And of course another issue is of the jurisdiction, because the arms license is limited to one place, one state, two states or three states, and you have to operate at the pan-India level. So my recommendation, my suggestion would be amendment in PASARA 2005 and Arms Act with enough safeguards. Kindly make enough safeguards and enough conditions and restrictions may be provided. But this is a need of the hour if we have to think in terms of smart cities and knowing what the police population ratio is. Then again, important factor is this. We are talking about skilled workers, skill development. I'm surprised to know, I'm rather not surprised to know, I know it, even the salary of a constable under the last pay commission was that of a postman. And all the risk that a postman has is perhaps if he goes to knock at your door and deliver a letter, he may be bitten by a dog. So somehow or the other, I don't know, it has not got into the system in this country that police itself was always placed under the non-planned budget and therefore was shortage of funds. I hope this malice does not transfer into the private security industry. I have seen it 35 years. And kindly take note of this, that this minimum wages has to be prescribed, and even if they are not doing it, as I started from my entire presentation was on focusing on people, the better you pay, the better services you will get. You know, motivation comes from within. It cannot be enforced. He can salute you, but behind that salute he might be abusing you, saying all kinds of things against you. But when the best output comes, when the guard wants to give it not because for his boss, but because he wants to do so. And how he wants to do so is what I've been trying to put down. And of course, as Mr. Bhatnagar also pointed out, that there is a lot of problem of attrition. But in case the skill, if the semi-skilled workers can be raised to the level of skilled laborers, skilled workers, and I think it's again, I'm not talking, because we are talking about 160 hours of training. So this will lead to qualitative and quantitative growth in PSI and cater to security gaps of urban policing. Another important aspect is power of detention. Now the security guard finds somebody loitering around, doing something, what has he got to do? Other in all foreign countries, and we are following, whether we should accept, we are blindly following the West, the USA and the Europe, in many respects. So if we are following this, also should follow that the private security agencies, how important, how it has come up as an auxiliary force. So some power of detention, at least till these enforcement agencies come, should be provided for, and certain enforcement power should be given. And of course, private detectives agency regulation bill, this is a baby of Kumar Saha, I did not say much on that. He's been pursuing it, the CAPC has been pursuing it, and the whole industry is pursuing it. I'm all for it. There are hundreds and thousands of detective agencies in this country. You just have to Google and you will find the number of detective agencies that will come in front of your screen. They need to be regulated. They need to be regulated, otherwise they all be doing harm, and they are doing harm. So the government has to look at this side also. And finally, my request, I'm just summarizing what is my takeaway from this talk. Grant of firearms licenses, grant of skilled work status, provision of certain enforcement powers, pursuing the passage of private detective agencies. And last but not the least, I must request the CAPC chairman, honorable chairman here, that whatever we deliberate here should be reduced in the form of resolutions. Maybe it is being done. And these resolutions must be sent to the government as to what the private security industry is thinking, because I can see virtually the whole of India assembled. Thank you.